Hello, dear students, you are welcome back to STR, Shivarajan's teaching room. If any of you viewers has not yet subscribed, please do subscribe and press the bell button for regular updates. Dear students, now let us begin the class. Today in this episode, we'll be discussing on fertilization and implantation. So what is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of the male and female gametes. The sperm is fusing with the ovum. That is fertilization. So what is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of the male and female gametes. The fusion of the sperm and the ovum is called fertilization. See, during coitus, during copulation, the semen is deposited inside the vagina. So these dark dots represent the semen. The semen is deposited in the vagina during coitus. And from here it moves through the cervix and comes to the uterus, and the sperms move in both directions of the oviduct. The sperms will be moving in both directions towards the oviduct. And now let us think what about the ovum. The ovary releases the ovum. The ovum released by the ovary is captured by the fimbriae of the oviduct and is brought into the infundibulum. Inside the oviduct, there are thousands of cilia, small hair-like structures or growths called cilia, and all the cilia will be moving towards the inside. So the ovum captured by the fimbriae moves through the infundibulum ampulla and goes forward. And look here, this is the point. This is the ampulla and this is the isthmus, and this is the point of meeting of ampulla and isthmus. This is called the ampullary isthmus junction. Ampullary isthmic junctions. The ovum comes to the ampullary isthmic junction and waits there. The sperms move through the oviduct and comes in contact with the ovum. So the fertilization, the fusion of the sperm with the ovum takes place where? Takes place in the ampullary isthmic junction. See now what happens here. This is the ovum and these are the sperms. This takes place in the ampullary isthmic junction. Now what happens? The thousands of, or we can say rather lakhs of sperms surround a single ovum, and each sperm will be trying to get into the ovum to fuse with it. Now what happens? The first sperm which meets the ovum releases the enzyme antifertilin. The acrosome of the sperm releases an enzyme called the antifertilin. It degrades the zona pellucida or the covering membranes of the ovum and creates a opening there, and through this opening the sperm head goes in. The total sperm do not go in, but the sperm head only goes into the ovum. And see, look at this picture. This is the sperm head. The sperm head has entered the cytoplasm of the ovum. So, what facilitates the penetration of the sperm into the ovum? The antifertilin, the enzyme present in the acrosome of the sperm, degrades the coverings or the coverings of the ovum, or we can say the zona pellucida, and creates an opening there. Through this opening, the sperm head enters into the cytoplasm of the ovum. Now, as soon as the sperm head enters into the ovum, the zona pellucida undergoes chemical change. The zona pellucida undergoes chemical change, and it stops the entry of a second sperm. So there is no question of a second sperm entering into the ovum, because as soon as a sperm head enters into it, the zona pellucida changes its chemical nature and prevents a second sperm entering into the ovum. So there is no question of entering a second sperm. Only a single sperm can fertilize the ovum. I think you have got it. So, number one, the semen is deposited in the vagina. The ovum released from the ovary is captured by the fimbriae and comes to the ambulus junction. And the sperms moves to the oviduct and fuses with this, or comes in contact with the ovum. Now, the second stage is the entry of a single sperm into the ovum. We have seen this. Now, what happens? The haploid nucleus entered into the ovum. The entry or the presence of the sperm head inside the ovum induces the nucleus of the ovum, which is in the secondary oocyte stage, to complete meiosis. So, the presence of the sperm head in the cytoplasm of the ovum induces the haploid nucleus of the ovum, that is in the secondary oocyte stage. It undergoes meiosis 2 and 2 haploid cells are produced. One is again a very small cell and it is the second polar body, and the bigger cell is the actual ovum, or we can say that is the ootid. So what is the change that takes place here? When the sperm head is inside the cytoplasm of the ovum, it induces the secondary oocyte to complete meiosis 2, and as a result 2 haploid cells are produced. Again, one is a very small cell, it is called a polar body, second polar body, and the other is a bigger cell, it is the actual ovum, or it is the ootid. Now what happens? The haploid nucleus of the ootid unites with the haploid nucleus of the sperm, that is the fusion takes place, that is fertilization takes place. As a result of fertilization, a single cell is produced, the third figure here. As a result of fertilization, a single cell is produced or formed, it is called the zygote. The zygote is having diploid ploidy, that is haploid nucleus of the ovum and haploid nucleus in the sperm fuses, so it becomes again a diploid nucleus. So the zygote is a diploid cell. The zygote is a single cell and it is a diploid cell. Now this cell, the zygote, undergoes repeated mitotic division. The zygote undergoes repeated mitotic division, and this repeated mitotic division of the zygote is also called as cleavage. So the zygote undergoes cleavage and one cell becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, like that. So the 8 to 16 celled stage is called morula. So the zygote, which is a single cell, undergoes mitotic division and or undergoes cleavage and becomes 8 to 16 celled stage. That condition is called morula. So zygote becomes morula. The morula, again, the mitotic division continues. So 32 cells, 16 becomes 32, 32 becomes 64, 64 becomes 128. Like that it continues and it becomes a mass of cells. And the cells in the morula gets arranged themselves into an outer layer made of one layer of cells. The outer layer made of one layer of cells. It is called a trophoblast. And inside trophoblast there is a group of cells staying together. It is called the inner cell mass. So the morula develops into blastocyst. What is the structure of blastocyst? The blastocyst is having one layer of outer cells and a group of cells inside. The one layer of outer cells is the trophoblast and the group of cells inside is called the inner cell mass. So the blastocyst has an outer layer made of one layer of cells called the trophoblast and it has an inner cell mass. And see, the zygote develops into or undergoes mitosis and group of cells are produced. All these cells are called blastomere. So the zygote is a single cell. It divides into 2, 4, 8, 16 like that, and all these cells are called blastomeres. So the morula is having blastomere amounting to 8 to 16 cells, and it again repeats. So the cells are called blastomere. Again these cells undergo mitotic division and increases, and the cells becomes rearranged themselves and becomes the blastocyst. The blastocyst is having an outer layer made of one layer of cells called the trophoblast, and the group of cells inside is called the inner cell mass. See, the blastocyst, look here, the fertilization took place in the ambulary isthmic junction. Then the zygote is undergoing revision, and at the same time it is moving forward. So the zygote undergoes division, and at the same time it is moving forward into the uterus. So the blastocyst comes into the uterus. See, the blastocyst has come into the uterus. In the uterus, what happens? The blastocyst get fixed with the endometrium. The blastocyst gets fixed into the endometrium. This fixing of the blastocyst into the endometrium of the uterus is called implantation. So we are discussing about fertilization and implantation. What is implantation? Implantation is the fixing of the blastocyst into the endometrium. Okay. So, and this fixing is called implantation, and implantation leads to pregnancy. Once the blastula has implanted into the endometrium, that confirms pregnancy. So we can say that implantation leads to pregnancy. Okay. So in this episode we have discussing about fertilization and implantation. So look here, the first picture 1. It explains the releasing of semen into the vagina and releasing of ovum, which comes into the ambulary junction. And picture 2 explains fertilization, and picture 3 is the picture of zygote, and 4 it becomes morula, and 5 it becomes blastocyst, and the blastocyst gets fixed with the endometrium, the innermost layer of the uterus, and this fixation is called implantation, and implantation leads to pregnancy. Once the blastula is implanted into the endometrium, that means pregnancy is confirmed. So implantation leads to pregnancy. So in the next episode we'll be discussing about pregnancy and the later developmental stages. Okay, so dear students, we stop at this point. Bye.